Well, folks, it's time. Time to take a look at one of the biggest and most anticipated animated films of the year. The one that people have been anticipating the most for months. The one that's built up so much hype. You all know what it is. I don't really think I even need to say the title. I mean, you read the title of this video, you clicked it, you already know what it is. But you know what? Screw it, I'll be kind this once. We're talking about the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Man, this is one I've been anticipating for a while, and I do have a lot to say about it. But before we get to that, I feel I should talk about the strange realm that is video game adaptations, cause it's been somewhat of a bumpy road for them, hasn't it? In fact, when I reviewed Wreck-It Ralph on my website 5 years ago, I opened up the review with the line, "Video game movies suck." Because yeah, back then, oh boy. From the 90s to the mid-2010s, video game adaptations ranged from being mediocre at best to absolutely atrocious at worst. It seemed like every so often we would get a video game film that was just not very good, or in the case of Uwe Boll's films, just flat out incompetent. If anything, all these films did were make us wish we were playing the games instead.
Too bad you will die.
The one video game studio that wisely mostly sat to the sidelines during that time was Nintendo, arguably the biggest video game studio in the world, as well as the one most protective of its characters. And the reason why is because, well, a film based on one of their games started that dark era. That was back in 1993 with the first film adaptation of Super Mario Bros. That starred Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo as the Mario Brothers.
Super Mario Brothers. This ain't no game.
Yeah, it surely was no game, Don. You also know what it wasn't? A good movie!
It's a complete waste of time and money.
It is. This film doesn't even try.
What this movie shows is that it's a lot harder to make a high-tech movie like this than you would think.
I'm sure most of you already know this by now, but the 1993 film was quite simply a disaster. A film that was so misguided, so troubled, and so confused that pretty much everyone who worked on it has disowned it and has since gone down as being considered one of the worst films of the 90s. If you want to know how confused, apparently the filmmakers wanted to make this film dark and gritty based on the success of Batman and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which... okay, the reason why Batman and TMNT worked as dark and gritty films was because the characters started off dark and gritty in comic books, so the filmmakers going that route made sense as a way to go back to their basics compared to the campy nature of the TV shows based on them. Mario didn't have dark and gritty origins, so this decision just comes off as bafflingly strange. Also, I'm looking at this now, and apparently this film took inspiration from Die Hard, Mad Max, and Blade Runner. Die Hard, Mad Max, Blade Runner. So yeah, it made sense why Nintendo had sat on the sidelines for so long after that film because, woof, that was a bad one.
Monkey!
Dennis, that's a chimp. Monkeys have tails. But now that 30 years have passed since then, I can say that video game adaptations have finally found their footing and have gotten much better. This includes films like Detective Pikachu, the Angry Birds movie 2, and the Sonic the Hedgehog films, and TV shows like Arcane and The Last of Us. So it seemed like it made sense for Nintendo to finally throw their hat in the ring once again with Mario, this time as an animated film made by Illumination. And while the film did have some initial internet discourse due to the fact that Illumination was making it, as well as the cast announcement, which did initially raise eyebrows, including from myself, once the trailers and marketing started to get revealed, the skepticism quickly died and the film became one of the most hyped animated films of 2023. And while I don't think this film fully lives up to the hype it built up so well in the trailers, I can say that this film is still a lot of fun and I did enjoy watching it. It basically delivers exactly what it promised to be. A fun and entertaining movie based on the iconic video games. And you know what? You can't go wrong with that. In Brooklyn, two young plumber brothers named Mario and Luigi, played by Chris Pratt and Charlie Day, have been trying to make their business take off, though it hasn't been going well. They are initially dismayed, but one day soon end up discovering a mysterious green pipe in the sewers that ends up warping them to another kingdom. The two end up getting separated, with Mario ending up in the Mushroom Kingdom, where he meets one of its inhabitants, Toad, played by Keegan-Michael Key, who takes him to their leader of the land, Princess Peach, played by Anya Taylor-Joy. Mario soon learns that the Mushroom Kingdom is in trouble as the villainous King of the Koopas, Bowser, played by Jack Black, is planning on taking over the kingdoms while also trying to make Peach his bride. To make matters worse, Luigi has ended up being captured by him. From there, Mario sets off with Peach to help stop Bowser, save the Mushroom Kingdom, and save his brother from imminent danger. So yeah, this was a film that did have a lot on its shoulders, considering that it's based on one of the biggest video games in history, and overall, I think it succeeded on that notion. Don't get me wrong, I certainly wouldn't call it a great film. I don't even think this is Illumination's best film. But it is definitely a fun one in my opinion, that does have a lot going for it, even if it does have some massive problems. The plot itself is not one that is exceptionally grand and massive, but considering it's a Mario movie, I wasn't expecting it to be. We don't play the Mario games for their complex storytelling. It's not Red Dead Redemption 2 or something like that. We play them for fun times, beautiful visuals, and fun characters. And that's exactly what the film gives us. There are some critics who will point out that the film does have a very thin-boned plot and that it does lack character development, and yes, I do agree on those points. However, I personally wasn't bothered by it at all, mainly because its presentation worked for me. It's basically the same way I feel about the first Madagascar. That film also suffered from a thin story and not much character development, but it still had a lot more going for it that made it a fun DreamWorks film. I think the big reason why this worked for me is because the set pieces are really well crafted and exciting to watch. The film doesn't pull any punches when building them up, and they are really well put together, and I can definitely see myself rewatching them a lot, both for their entertainment value and even to catch some nifty Easter eggs. The scenes that stood out in particular are the fight between Mario and Donkey Kong, played by Seth Rogen, the Rainbow Road sequence, and even the grand finale, which I won't spoil here. It basically has all the fun that I would expect out of a Nintendo game, and I did enjoy watching them for that. However, I will say that while I wasn't bothered by the film's thin plot and lack of character development, I was bothered by the pacing. This film feels surprisingly rushed. While it does start off fine as we see Mario and Luigi in Brooklyn, the film starts to really go by too fast as soon as they get separated going to the Mushroom Kingdom. Like, I'm not kidding, as soon as Mario meets Peach, he tells her about his situation, and Peach is pretty instantly willing to help him out, and they go to the training sequence. It feels like the film is on constant fast forward and trying to cut through the fat, and while I don't mind films that get straight to the point, as you don't want your film to drag, you also don't want it to go by too fast, as you sometimes want to take more of the film in, and this one doesn't seem to want to allow that. The film is 92 minutes long, and I know that directors Aaron Hovarth and Michael Jelenic did put a lot of cool stuff in this film, but I feel they really should have honed the reins and given the film a chance to breathe and have the characters really process the world, as it just goes from scene to scene to scene all too fast. Speaking of the world, if there's one thing that truly stands tall in this film, it's easily the animation. This film is gorgeous. Quite simply, this is easily the best looking film that Illumination has ever made, and you could really tell that they put their heart into capturing the look of the games down to a T. The colors really pop, and the design of the Mushroom Kingdom is very dazzling, and it's certainly a world you would want to really explore. It does feel like a functional world that feels interesting and unique. I also think that the character designs perfectly match the look of the characters as we expect them to. The characters themselves are mostly pretty good. After a lot of heated debate, I do think that Chris Pratt is perfectly fine as Mario. He doesn't really elevate this character or make him unique like in the same way he did for Emmett in the Lego Movie or Barley in Onward, but I do think he's a serviceable protagonist that is fun to watch, and one you want to root for even if there's not much under the surface. I do think that his brotherly bond he shares with Luigi does feel genuine, and I did like seeing the two together on screen when they were there, but I do wish there was more of that. And even if Luigi isn't in a lot of the movie, he is still fun in the moments he is. It was also cool to see Princess Peach given a lot more to do here than just be the damsel in distress. Though the ones that stood out to me the most and were the most fun are the supporting characters of the film. So with that said, let's talk about the best one of the film first. And you probably already know who it is.
I do not.
Yeah, it's Bowser. Shocking, I know. When Jack Black was announced as Bowser back in 2021, he was the one choice that the internet did collectively agree on for fitting the role, and I can confirm he really does steal the show here. He is so much fun to watch, as he's both menacing and quite funny. As cool and awesome as Bowser is, the games have shown him to be a bit goofy too, and this film definitely captures that. The scenes where he imagines himself wooing Peach are pretty hilarious. I also really like Toad in this film too, as he's both brave and supportive of the others while sharing some funny moments. Though I could be a bit biased, since Toad is my favorite Mario character. The one character that I was surprised to find myself liking a lot, though, was Donkey Kong. He was really funny and does get to share a bit of the spotlight in the film, and I really found him hilarious. Seth Rogen was clearly having a ball playing him, as he was able to make him both cocky and arrogant without coming across annoying. Now, as far as other problems I have with the film, there are two major ones I can think of. One is that some of the comedy isn't funny. This film really overuses the slow-mo gag a lot. And the second one is that this film has pop song needle drops. And that really made me roll my eyes. Now, I'm not talking about the score of the film done by Brian Tyler, where it uses the music from the games done by Koji Kondo. I adored that score, and I thought it was top-notch. I'm mainly talking about the times the film decided to use pre-existing pop songs in the film, because God, that was such a bad idea. Not just because they were so out of place for a film like this, but because the song choices they picked were so painfully generic. I'm not going to say what they are here because I don't want to put spoilers in this review, but I'll just say you'll understand what I mean once you see the film. But despite those problems, I still do think that the Super Mario Bros. Movie is a fun time. While it's not Illumination's best film and not what I'd call a great animated film, as it suffers from rushed pacing and some iffy choices, as well as being narratively thin, it does work due to its exciting set pieces, dazzling animation, and fun cast of characters. It should really satisfy a lot of Nintendo/Mario fans. I think the best way to look at this film is kind of the same way as the first Sonic the Hedgehog film. That was also not what I'd call a great film, and it also had serious problems, but it was still enjoyable for what it was, and was able to build upon itself for a sequel. That's the same thing I feel about this. And yes, it's gonna get a sequel, let's be honest. So I'm gonna give the Super Mario Bros. Movie an 8. Again, it's not a great animated film, but it's still a fun one nonetheless that I enjoyed watching, and I think even newcomers might have fun too. I do hope this film does convince Nintendo to keep going with films, because there are tons of great animated films they could make from their IPs. But till then, this was a fun ride, and I'm glad to see a good Mario movie. Grab your power-ups and see it for yourself.